Welcome to the Triple Play Fantasy Network, and the Super Fantasy Bros podcast. And on this show, it's a little different tonight. So we do not have Jacob Dunn. Jacob Dunn's wife is in labor, so he's having his second baby. So prayers are with him and his family, and hope everything's going good. Haven't had any updates yet. So on this episode of the podcast, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the brains behind Triple Play Fantasy. He graced us with his presence today. That is D. Mindy, David Mendelson. David, how are you doing tonight?
Oh man, you never talk that nice to me. Otherwise, I'm not used to that from you. But I don't take all the credit. For those that don't know, Kev puts in not just for Triple Play Fantasy, but for other stuff too. He really puts in so much work and is a grinder, pushes me. So I'd like to think that we both kind of are at the top Triple Play Fantasy, pushing out a bunch of content together.
Yeah, I'll take credit. I do a lot. But no, seriously, David jumped in for us tonight, and we are going to be just rolling with this. So Jacob should be back next week, and we're hoping he'll be there. But until then, on today's show, we're going to be covering our top 5 running backs heading into the 2021 season. We are also going to be telling us running backs that we don't want to be drafting based on ADP or just in general, like, hey, we're going to avoid those guys. And then we'll be answering listener and redraft dynasty questions. So let's go. Here we go.
Here we go.
All right, now before we get started into the top 5 running backs and all of that news, like we always try to do a news segment, what's going on in the news, everything. But for everybody out there that's listening, you might not know what the Scott Fish Bowl is. The Scott Fish Bowl is a massive tournament, and it's had some of the top minds in the country. I think there's 2,000 people in this one. I think that's what they said last time.
I think it's like 1,900. Yeah, it's like nearly 2,000.
Yeah, so it's around 2,000 people. Matthew Berry, all the way down, are in it, and me and David are in it, as well as Jacob. And so we definitely wanted to touch base, kind of how our drafts are going. Mine is going super slow. I am struggling right now because I'm going on vacation this week, and I really want to get some rounds done. But I'm gonna be drafted at SeaWorld, and my wife's gonna stab me. But David? How is your draft going for Scott Fish Bowl?
It's interesting. I will say this, I did a lot of mocks, but as always, you can mock as much as you want, but it never goes how you think it's going to go, right? I did a lot of mocks where I went 2 quarterbacks early, but in the real one, they went so fast and a lot more than I thought that even like the Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady's, the guys who I were kind of looking to take, Ryan Tannehill, those type of guys I was looking to get as my QB2 all got taken. And so there was no quarterback in my mind that was worth with my second round pick. I didn't want to take like a Derek Carr. I didn't want to take Trey Lance or Justin Fields or any of those guys that early, anything like that. So I decided to go Kyle Pitts with the second round pick. Took him because of the tight end premium it provides. And he's the big 3 were already off the board. So I went bold with Kyle Pitts, took Mahomes at the 1.01. And then I'm 6 rounds in. And so I kind of ever since then balanced it out. I took Swift and Gaskin as my running backs. And I have Diggs and Robinson as my wide receivers so far. So 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. I'm pretty happy with it so far. Running backs went like crazy at one point when I was trying to stack better running backs or running backs that I believe a little bit more in than Swift. I know you're a Swift guy. I wanted CEH really bad, and he made it to the pick right before me and got taken. So I was very pissed about that. But overall, I'd say I'd give myself a solid B+. I definitely think I need to do some more roster construction stuff. But what about you, man? How's your draft been going?
Let me tell you right now, you're gonna be glad CH went before you, because that would have been a wasted pick. And I really want to see you succeed in this Scott Fish Bowl. And so that's a good thing. Mine's going okay. I had the 11th pick. I really wanted Waller, and he went to 110, so I was very tilted. I ended up taking Herbert and Jonathan Taylor with my first 2 picks, and then on the third round reversal. So those of you out there listening, there's a 3rd round reversal in this. It's a little different. I took Burrow because I was a little worried about my quarterback situation. Quarterbacks are kind of flying off the board, and I felt like there's a big teardrop. So I took Burrow, and I just drafted Keenan Allen. So I have a Keenan Allen stack with Herbert, and then I'm just waiting. But it's super fun tournament. If you're listening and you're not involved, you sign up the Scott Fish Bowl and get in. And if you get an invite, great. If not, it's all for charity. All the donations. I think they raised almost $30,000 this year for kids' toys for Christmas time. So absolute fun, unless you have a couple slow drafters like I do that are killing me. But let's move on to the next piece of news. And I always put this in because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. So any news out there is good news for the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are on Hard Knocks. Now, I want to kind of relate this to kind of fantasy purposes. I think for Dynasty, this sucks because prices and ADP, except even redraft, I think are going to go up for these guys because that's kind of what we see. And people are going to be watching Hard Knocks. You're going to have CeeDee Lamb killing it. So do you think that ADP is going to go up at all?
I do. I think we're very reactive as fantasy analysts. We see someone that looks different in a workout. We hear things from reporters. There's going to be so much hype, I think, especially around Zeke. I think people are going to be like, he looks better than he has in 3 years. He looks faster. I think all their ADPs are going to go up. And I do think in Dynasty, if you have someone like Zeke, it's going to be the time to sell when he's going to get bumped and have that much more volume or hype than I think he would during the season. And he's obviously still going to have another 1 or 2 more solid years, I expect. But I don't think he's going to be any more valuable than he will be after Hard Knocks air. So that's my advice on that.
You're going to sell my guy Zeke. Now, he's going to look great. Like, he's going to look awesome in his half cut off shirt, and he's going to look like he's in shape. He's going to crush it. I know Zeke's going to crush it. I'm all about Zeke. I think CD is going to be the one that pops up a lot. And especially, I think redraft, people are going to be like, oh my God, he can be wide receiver 1, which he will be, all you Amari Pooper fans out there. So you have CeeDee Lamb. You're going to allow him. As a Cowboys fan, I'm haunted by this because it's going to be awful. And we're going to get shit on by everybody out there. And Jerry Jones, I'm going to see his plastic surgery face everywhere during the episode because he cannot miss a camera. Like, I really wish we could have just went under the radar and not had to worry about Hard Knocks. But of course, they picked the Cowboys because it's America's team and everybody wants to see them.
Can we watch that together, like when it's on like StreamYard together and have it on our TV so we can gossip during it? I think that'd be pretty fun.
I think everybody out there listening, I am going to do a live reaction show for the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube network. So I am going to be, after the show, I'm popping on with some either Cowboy fans or this guy, whoever, or listeners, you want to pop on, you let me know. We will be doing a reaction show for each episode on the channel. But let's get into running backs. Let's see how we do here. So we're going to be looking at redraft first and basically going through kind of David's top 5. We'll help him a little bit because I know he's a little shaky on his rankings. And then we'll go to Dynasty for me. So let's go to redraft. All right, David, we're going to go through the top 5 2021 running backs for redraft. Why don't you give us kind of like your first one? We'll kind of go through it and just go from there and talk it out.
All right, so my number 1 is a guy that nobody's talking about. I mean, he's completely going under the radar, and I don't think anybody knows about him too much. That's Christian McCaffrey, this guy that just eats touches like they were what's your favorite food? Like pizza? Eats them all up.
Was that a fat joke? I don't understand. I don't appreciate that. Like if I asked you that, it'd be cauliflower or something. But for me, it's pizza.
That's why they have the cauliflower crust, Kev. I got to get you hip another time.
That's disgusting. That's a Maryland thing that I don't understand about. No, my favorite food is ribs. So yes, I'm.
What?
Yes, my favorite is ribs.
They're good, ribs. But they should be nobody's favorite food.
Well, you're just not cooking them right. Sorry. All right.
Okay. We'll get to that tangent another time.
Let me hear your CMC take. Yeah, here we go.
I mean, Christian McCaffrey is good. I think everybody in the world knows that. Christian McCaffrey, I mean, he's pretty much like a player and a half because the amount of catches he gets, the amount of carries he gets, there's no competition for goal line work. Again, this is a guy that's going to be one of probably 2 or 3 running backs that's going to get 100 targets in the passing game. So you have that, and obviously he's the number 1, 2, and 3 in the backfield. Again, I don't think anybody is questioning if Christian McCaffrey is healthy. He's the number 1 running back in redraft, and probably number 1 running back in Dynasty too. I know we'll get to your rankings too, but
yeah, I mean,
I just saw the comments. But yeah, no, I think Christian McCaffrey number 1. I think that's not Ribs are good. Ribs are good. Don't get me wrong, but they're not. They should be nobody's 1.01. Number two is I have is Dalvin Cook, and I do know that obviously Dalvin Cook is another year older. I believe he's 26 years old, but that means he should still have another 2 to 3 more good years left. I think of being an elite back. He's also somebody that excels in the passing game. Someone else that is going to have a high amount of targets on a team that, frankly, Kirk Cousins loves to do play action. And what do you need to do in play action? You got to make sure that you run the ball enough to make sure it's a threat, and they excel at that. So you have Dalvin Cook, who's going to obviously also, I mean, Alexander Madison's behind him, but he's not somebody. I think Alexander Madison's the most overhyped backup. He's never really truly delivered as a great backup to him. So Dalvin Cook, as long as he's healthy, is going to be one of the top 2 guys in the league in touches. Number 3,
I have hold on. I do want to give you props because I never give you props enough. I agree with Madison. Like, he is the most overrated backup running back we've seen in the last couple of years. And when he had the opportunity, when Cook gets hurt, he never produces. Like, he never produces. So that is actually the smartest thing I've ever heard you say, Mindy. Like, I will be honest. Like, we've known each other for a long time, and now, like, yeah, I wouldn't even waste a draft pick on him. Like, he's not a handcuff that I would want. If you're drafting Dalvin Cook in redraft, I don't even think I'd want him as my handcuff because you could probably get different handcuffs that can produce better for you if their running backs go down. And I know Cook goes down, and I know he's kind of had that with the extended season, but I still don't want him as a handcuff, right? Like, I'm not wasting a pick on that in redraft. I just wait to see maybe pick him up off the waivers.
Do you think Amir Abdullah could eventually take over, especially if they try to make Madison a thing, and then Abdullah could slide in? Because right now he's 3rd according to the ESPN depth chart at running backs, and then their 4th string is a guy I've never even seen, Kene Nwankatu.
Hey, listen, Kene is legit from Iowa State. Like, he didn't get a lot of playing. Like, you're talking to Debbie guy now. Like, Kene can play. Like, he was sitting behind. Kene was sitting behind Breece Hall, and Breece Hall obviously is going to be running back 1 in 2022. More than likely. Kene can actually play a little bit. Like, if you're in a dynasty league, that is a kid to go after. Like, I really like him, and he's a good kid to look at for waiver wire. Like, hey, can you kind of grab him later? Like, Abdullah, Amir Abdullah is not. I actually think Kene can actually step up and be the 3rd running back in that depth chart, especially after camps open up and everything. Like, that's a kid that he's got a profile, he's got everything there. He just didn't get the opportunity.
So if I take him as my last pick in the draft, when everybody goes and jumps and takes Madison, and I take him with my last pick and he doesn't do a single thing, I know who to go to.
Yep, you can blame me. I didn't say draft him. I said waiver wire pickup. Dynasty for sure, but redraft, he's someone to keep an eye on. I mean, everybody's looking for the next James Robinson. It's not going to be a guy like that, but it could be a guy that steps in for Cook when he's hurt. But I'll let you go to your number 3.
No, that's fine. So again, those 2 I think are firm in most people's rankings. My number 3 is Derrick Henry for redraft. And again, Derrick Henry was number 1 in PPR, number 3 in standard, number 1 in standard, number 3 in PPR last year. Obviously, he does not get the catches that some of these other guys do. And it's tempting to put Kamara there, but Kamara is undergoing a quarterback change, and he relies a lot in the passing game. And if he doesn't have a quarterback that gives him the ball through the air like Drew Brees has the last few years, I'm worried about him staying in the top 3. Derrick Henry has shown you year after year for the last few years. He's consistent. He is the 1A, 2, and 3 in that backfield. And they're going to try to lean on him when they get in close. He's going to have those monster games that alone just elevate him a lot higher past other guys. I think he's going, again, redraft wise, I would be shocked if he falls outside the top 3. I have him ranked as my number 3 back.
Okay. So I like Derrick Henry. I think those are your top 3 in redraft. Like, no argument there. I do want you to tell me if you think this is what I should have done here. I picked Kamara. I picked Jonathan Taylor over Kamara and Scott Fishbowl. So that's how I rank them. Am I crazy for doing that?
No, it's hard. I'm not gonna say you're crazy for doing that, even though I like to call you crazy when I can. But it's hard because Jonathan Taylor, again, is going to dominate the ball on the ground. But Nyheim Hines was the number 15 PPR back last year. So he's not going anywhere. He's going to stay heavily involved in the passing game. And that's what scares me a little bit as far as Jonathan Taylor's value, because as long as Nyheim Hines is there, he's not going to get the ball in the air as much. And in PPR formats, we like that from running back. So that's the only reason I'm a little hesitant about it. But again, Kamara's relied so much on volume through the air in the past few years, whatever, I can't speak. But with the QB change and, a whole entire new looking offense, that I'm more, especially with like Taysom Hill at the helm, if he starts, that does really scare me. So I would probably still, just for the fact that it's Kamara, and I think that they're going to make sure they get him the ball in the air, even if it's not to the Drew Brees level, I would still put in PPR Kamara and then Taylor, but I'm not going to go say it's weird to have it reversed.
Okay, nah, look at that. Now I'm kind of nervous you agreed with me because we never do that, but I'll take it. I'll take it there. So we have CMC, you had Cook, you had Henry, and then Kamara fourth.
Yeah, I have Kamara fourth, and then I have Jonathan Taylor fifth.
Oh, so Taylor jumped in there. I think there's a bit. Do you feel like there's a tier break after Henry though, or do you have Kamara
Yes,
still in that top tier?
I do have. Well, actually, I have it as 1 and 2. I'm sorry, yeah, 1, 2, 3 tier break, and then I actually have Nick Chubb as number 6 in that same tier with Kamara, Taylor, and then Chubb, and then another tier.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, so that was our next question we were going to go through is like anyone that we think could sneak into that top 5. I love the Chubb call. I think that he's definitely in there, but he kind of has the same limitations for receiving work too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be a big problem. But again, he's shown how efficient he is, and if one thing happens to Kareem Hunt, then he's probably a top 3 or 4 back if he's the sole guy in that backfield. So I do bank. Again, the PPR aspect definitely hurts him, but I do think he's a guy that at the end of every year you see him. I think he's the best runner of the football in the NFL. I do think if you're looking strictly at their tape and looking at them run, he's the best running back. And he does every single year. He's very efficient. He reads holes very well, and he's on a very good offense at the end of the day, which is also super important for fantasy value. How good is their offense, and are they going to score points? And he's in one of those dynamic offenses. So I think that'll definitely help boost him up as well.
All right. Now I have a hard-hitting question for you because I'd like to throw these out. Who do you think finishes higher then? Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, CEH, or DeAndre Swift? Who would you pick out of that group?
Kevin.
Okay, actually, no. Let's leave CEH out. Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, or DeAndre Swift? Who are you taking from those 3?
I have Cam Akers highest of that group, and then I have DeAndre Swift, and then I have Antonio Gibson. If I'm not going to probably get any Antonio Gibson this year, and that's okay. So I have him ranked 16, and I know people have him like firmly in their top 10, and that's fine.
16.
He's 16 on my rankings. I
I
think the turf toe is something he didn't get surgery on. I think that will linger a little bit more than people realize. He's also never obviously being converted from wide receiver to running back. He obviously got a lot of breaks last year because he had the injury. He also got taken out a lot of passing downs. I don't know if you're not used to getting hit that much. I am questioning some of his durability factor as well. I'm also questioning, again, the kissing man. J.D. McKissick is still there to eat up some targets through the air. And Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to throw the ball more than Alex Smith did last year. So I think that's also going to hurt him a little bit. He probably will get some targets in the passing game, but he's probably the guy that I think most people are in love with that I'm not to that level this year.
No, I mean, to be fair, I think he's going to be a running back 2 in that level. Like, and he probably is a lower tier running back 2. Like, I agree in that part because Fitzpatrick pushes the ball down more. And I think that's why McKissick's I think his ADP is too high too, because I think they're thinking he's going to get the targets that he saw, but Alex Smith couldn't throw the ball and he was so limited with his injuries. I do agree to an extent there. I like Cam. I think Cam, I'm not worried about Darrell Henderson as much. I think he's going to be a little bit touchdown dependent with Darrell, but Cam is going to be there. I still think Swift finishes ahead of all those guys, and I'm going to die on the Swift train. But that's just me. That's the hill I'm dying on. Now,
we have a bet, right?
What? We do have a bet. Yes.
Did you want to tell? Have you told your listeners our bet?
We have not. I don't really. What are we betting again? Who finishes higher between CEH and Swift? Right.
Yep, and the loser has to change their profile picture for what the winner chooses for 2 weeks.
Yes, that is our bet out there for everybody out there. Who finishes higher between Swift and CH, PPR, and we have to change our profile picture. So if you'd like to see what that looks like, what Mindy will look like at the end of the season, make sure you follow him at dmindy02. All right, now there's a clear tier like breaks between these guys. So last question in terms of redraft. Where are you taking Josh Jacobs? Like, are you out on Josh Jacobs, or are you still think his ADP is pretty good? Because right now I think he's getting ranked like in the 20s, maybe 18, 19.
Dude, it was so hard. I actually, in the Scott Fish Bowl, I had the 5-6 turn. I took Gaskin, and then Jacobs was still there, and I was tempted to. I was like, do I go get Jacobs, or do I take a wide receiver? And I took Allen Robinson just because I'm that much out on Josh Jacobs as far as he doesn't get as much through the air as we'd like. And he's splitting with Kenyon Drake, who may not get as many carries as a 50-50 split, but I have right now, I have Josh Jacobs ranked I have him at 17 right now. I might even bump him a little lower than that, honestly, when I like readjust my rankings. But he's a meh. Like if I could describe, he's a meh. Like there's nothing exciting about him. And I think John Gruden likes to throw the ball too. Like he's a passing guy. Like he wants to put the ball in Derek Carr's hands as much as he can. And he wants to utilize Darren Waller. And they just drafted Henry Ruggs last year, the first wide receiver off the board. So I'm a little worried as far as his volume is concerned of taking him as, higher than a back end RB2. But again, I don't think anybody's leaving their draft unless you get Josh Jacobs as like your RB3. I don't think anybody's excited about that. And I'm treating him as such. I'm unless he slips a ton, I'm not going to get him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I still think I think he can be a running back too, though. Like, let's say you do draft him as your running back 3. That's pretty good value because I think he could finish there. I'm not on the Kenyon Drake train. Like, I don't think he's anything. Like, I'm out. I've been out on him for 2 years. I thought it was funny people were trading him. There's a pretty big website in person that traded for a first a couple years ago, touting about it, but we won't go there. But no, I would stay away from that news unless his ADP falls pretty low. Now we're going to go to about my dynasty running backs, and like anything, like what we tell everybody, Mindy's going to jump in and say why I'm wrong, why I'm right. I have some hot takes for this. So I'm an ageist. I want everybody to know out there, like I like the young running backs and I like 2 to 3 year windows. So when I'm looking at dynasty assets, I want to see them over that value. So that's what I'm going here for my top 5 dynasty running backs. But my number 1 running back is CMC. So I'm not getting crazy. He is the number 1 just because of, 2 years ago, his numbers were astronomical, 400 something fantasy points per game. I mean, he single-handedly, if you had CMC, unless you were a shitty manager, you should have won a championship. Like there is really no way else you should have not won without CMC on that roster, unless for some reason you just don't know how to set your lineup. He was a cheat code, just like Kelsey has been his whole career. Now my number 2, and I want to see what you think here. I put Jonathan Taylor as my number 2 dynasty asset. Right now his ADP is about running back 2 in dynasty, running back 2 or 3. So it's not as hot takey as I think some will say. I do think that the Nyheim Hines, this is why I waited to tell you were wrong a little bit, was that I do think that the Nyheim Hines, like he finished as running back 15, yes, in PPR, but that was also when the first 8 weeks of the season, they didn't really feed Taylor and they didn't use him in a lot of different sets. They didn't use him in a lot of different ways. They didn't really see his usage bump up. And then as soon as Taylor started getting his usage bumped up, you did see Nyheim Hines, even towards the end of the year when they were both healthy, I think the production went down a little bit. So I still think Hines could be a very solid running back 3 option. But I think Taylor's talent, and he's just too talented. I still think of him as an asset that you want to own. And for me, for dynasty purposes, if he's your running back 2, which I think he is, your value is too high. You can trade him. You can use that piece. That's why I have him as my running back 2. Is that too high for you?
No, I'm actually okay with it. I'm kind of interested. I guess I'll bring this up when we're done. I don't have a problem with him being there. Obviously, he's incredibly young, and he's on a good offense, and he's going to be a good running back, hopefully, at least for the next, you'd think 4 or 5 years. And I know you're an ageist, as you've always brought up. So just for the fact that he's going into his second year with the upside that he has there, I can't fault you for that. I am curious at your number 3 with Saquon Barkley, with the injuries we've seen. I guess I'm leading up to here. How come you have Saquon Barkley number 3 and Dalvin Cook not on your list?
Well, Barkley's better. And he's because, okay, so for me, for everybody out there that's listened to the podcast, you guys know, but when I'm looking at dynasty assets and values, I'm a 1 contract guy. So I'm selling them at that 1 contract. For me, that's why Taylor's higher for me. Cause you said 4 years, no way. I'm keeping him for 2 more years, this year, next year, and then he's gone. I'm out selling. Get the hell off my dynasty team. I don't want you to be on there.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, old school. Now, Barkley, he still has that year until his second contract. So I think for me, perceived value-wise, so like I said, Barkley's my number 3. Perceived value-wise, when I'm looking at it, if he has a good year this year and he goes back to the Barkley is old, then you get a stud running back at that spot behind these guys. He's going in the second round of dynasty startups. I can grab him. Now he's a running back 1 again. but I'm trading him after this year. I won't keep him. Like, I'm out. I'm going to trade him for either a younger piece, whatever I can to kind of adapt it. So to me, it's all about stocks. That's all I really look at it. So for me, my value rankings is here. Like, I think Dalvin is a very good redraft guy. And if you're kind of going for, hey, but in startups, I will never draft Dalvin Cook. I will never do it. Like, I just can't, because after this year, what is he? He's an aging asset that you're really not going to get off. Like, Nick Chubb to me is that same asset. Like, I love Chubb, but this is the last year. If you're a contender, you should have Chubb on your roster. But if we're talking about that second contract coming after this year, it's a decaying asset. So for me, it's like, okay, how can I move these guys in chips? But that's why. I do believe in Barkley, though. I think he's an improved offense. I think you're going to see his usage rate goes up. I do think they're not going to use him as much in the first few games, and that's a good chance to buy, because I think that the market will dip a little bit. But if he comes back healthy, and he's a super freak. Have you seen him? Like, he makes you look a small man. Like, he is a massive guy. I mean, he's going to come back. He's going to bounce back. I do think that you were going to see, and the stat I always bring up is he was 13 points away from CMC when healthy that year that CMC put all those numbers up. If you take all their numbers from when they were healthy, he was 13 points away from him being the running back one. So he has the talent. He has I think the quarterback situation is going to be better. Offensive line is a little shaky, but I think, with what they're bringing in, what they developed there, I think will be all right. Jason Garrett leans on his running backs. We've looked at that with Zeke. I wrote a big old piece on Barkley before last season, and it showed that Jason Garrett had a running back one almost every single year that he's been in Dallas, even without Zeke. So I think I buy in all that. So I understand not having Cook will hurt your feelings, but that's how I look at it. Like, Can you give me a yes or no on that?
My question to you is, how do you deal with the fact that Barkley has been a totally different player from Eli Manning to Daniel Jones? He's like not nearly as involved in the passing game with Daniel Jones, and a lot of those great numbers he had when Eli Manning was quarterback. So I'm just very curious if that concerns you at all, that Daniel Jones doesn't look to get his running backs involved quite as much in the passing game as Eli did. So does that concern you long-term for him?
No, not really. I mean, to me, I think Daniel Jones, well, if we look at 2019, when he came back, I think that's the kind of you're mentioning. When you saw, I mean, in 2019, in week 15 and 16, in the championship weeks, he had 30 and 43 fantasy points. So you did see that. You saw his targets go up to 4 or 5. So I don't mind that. And I'm actually not a down on Daniel Jones as much. I know last season against Pittsburgh, before he got hurt, he had 9 targets in the receiving game. So they did look to kind of get him the ball. But I think with Galladay there and stuff, I think those will go down a little bit. But no, I think he's just one of those supreme athletes. Like, to me, Barkley's supreme athlete. I'm going to draft him knowing that, hey, I think his value is going to increase. And the injury doesn't worry me, because I'm not going to hold Barkley after this year. So that's kind of where, if you think you're going to hold him for 2 years, then that's where it's a depreciating asset.
And also, I guess to clear up, you're a years in the league type of guy instead of age guy. So you're not like, oh, when they're 26, I'm ditching them. It's more of like, you've been in the league 3 years. I don't care if you're 24, I'm ditching you.
Yeah. Before first contract. Running backs, I will die on this hill. I am trading. And even if so look at Henry. I would have traded Henry before his season would have happened last year, but I still think I would have got premium value for him. Like, you can't really get premium value anymore for Henry, because everybody knows he's an aging asset. He went though the 4th round of a startup I did. Like, you can't do it now, right? Like, so that's how I am. I don't look at ageist as like, oh yeah, he's 26, I'm going to get rid of him. Like, I actually look at like, okay, where's the value at based on how many years they played? And there is something to say even for like wide receivers. Like, this might actually be a good time to sell Justin Jefferson. Like, I wrote a mini piece on that. Like, this could be the opportunity to sell Justin Jefferson for a boatload right now because of how the wide receiver talent's been. Then get him back in 3 or 4 years when he's old and have 2 years of production at 27, 28. And that's kind of how you should do it. Also,
the fact is, look at Justin Jefferson. Can his value get even higher? I don't think it can. I think I think it's literally at his peak right now. So like, if you're looking at someone and you're like, literally, they can't get higher, that I feel like that's got to be the best time to sell somebody, even if you think long term they are going to be, a Tyreek Hill or not a Tyreek Hill or one of those guys, a Devontae Adams, somebody who's going to be a top 3 wide receiver. There's a chance that he's not. And if he doesn't, you'd kick yourself being like, man, if I sold Justin Jefferson after his first year and when he was regarded as a top 4 or 5 dynasty asset, and now he's like now like a 2nd or 3rd round pick, Like it's
Mhm.
totally, a whole different thing. So I don't
No,
disagree with that.
So, like, for example, if we go back to the running backs for selling high, Chubb was a guy I wrote a little mini piece for. Someone sold Chubb in a second for A.J. Brown in Dynasty. That's okay to me because you're getting an asset like A.J. Brown. And if you didn't need Chubb, like Chubb's at his peak now, right? Like Chubb is there. Chubb straight up for C.D. Lamb. Like, I understand both perspectives, but if you're going to build through that, like that's how you get a dynasty asset like Lamb or Brown for Chubb, who is a declining asset. That's what I'd be looking for my running backs. And then I'm just going to draft a running back in the first round because running backs always drop in super flex leagues. Like I got Javonte Williams at the 110 in a super flex league. So that's kind of my perspective there. Now, my fourth dynasty running back is going to make David especially mad, but mine is Swift because I'm a Swift guy. I mean, everybody knows that. So, DeAndre Swift's my running back 4. I know that's pretty high for some. I think I saw someone have like an 8 or 9, kind of where they're at there. But I still think Swift's going to get 65 to 70 targets. I think he's going to have 1,200 yards rushing and like 6 or 7 touchdowns.
Are you just going to ride? Are you hoping you speak it into existence so it happens? Because
I think it's going to be. I think that he's going to be that good. Now we'll see. But the nice thing is about him is that you can get him in redraft. You can get him like 4th, 5th round, which is ridiculous. In Superflex and one quarterback, probably about 3rd round. But I still think that's kind of crazy to me in there. Now in Dynasty, I got him in the 3rd round of a recent draft. So that's not bad for if you think he can be your running back 1. I think he's a bell cow anchor running back. But I know you have your different opinions there. So we'll move on from him because we've already kind of mentioned him. Now, I have Akers at my number 5. So I do know that I'm going young here. I know that, Kamara's not there. Chubb, Henry, those type of guys aren't on there, and neither is Dalvin Cook. But they're to me in that next tier of guys, which are basically running back 1s, but they're past that contract that I would like to draft at. So for dynasty purposes, that's where I have. I'm a big believer in Akers. I think Akers is going to crush it this year. I think with McVay's offense, with what he does to Gurley, I think he's going to get a 70-30, 75-25 kind of target share. It's just the volume between him and Henderson. If he can score 8 touchdowns this year, look out. I think he's going to get the targets there. I love everything about Cam Akers, and I love that Matthew Stafford is there, not Jared Goff.
Is the reason that his competition, why you have him over second-year guys like CEH, Antonio Gibson, and J.K. Dobbins, is it just that fact that there's not as much for him to compete with, or do you think he's a better player?
No, I love J.K. Dobbins. I love him to death. He's my guy. But that situation with it's probably going to be 60-40 with Gus Edwards. I think that with Lamar, with Rashad Bateman there, I think you're going to see less targets. I think Bateman's going to actually do pretty well this season. So for me, J.K. Dobbins is a superior talent, but in a shitty situation, which is weird to say that he's in Baltimore shitty situation, but he is. Like, I just don't think he's going to get the volume needed. Gibson, the foot worries me, like you mentioned. I think they have better weapons, and I do think they're going to push the ball downfield more. But I do like Gibson there, and I'm not touching CEH. I'm not touching CEH.
More for me. That's fine. More for me.
That's fine. Now, I think I do I put Gibson and Dobbins in that could sneak into the top 5 for dynasty purposes, just because if they do have a good year because of their age and where they're at relative, I think they could go in there. And again, but everybody else, like when you're looking at dynasty perspectives, like Mixon should be I have Mixon in a few leagues. You can't trade him yet, but to me, you got to get rid of him if you can, as soon as you can, because that's just a depreciating asset too. And he got his contract. When you're going through here, I'd be interested to see what you think of Najee Harris. I know that some people have him ranked higher than J.K. Dobbins and Antonio Gibson. Are you that crazy or no?
No. Simply no way.
Okay, because I mean, he's been going pretty high. He went in like the middle of in the Scott Fish Bowl. He went in like the second, like the 205, I think, or the 204.
Did he really?
Yeah, they're drafting him high in my league. Najee Harris is there. I have some questions about that. We talked about that last episode. Just that offensive line, they're losing a lot. Big Ben doesn't really give it to me there, so I'm staying away from Najee.
He is going to get a lot of the touches, though, in that backfield. They do like to ride their running backs there. So I do think the volume aspect is intriguing. I was trying to take him in the 3rd round, and he got taken at the end of the 3rd round in my draft. I don't know if I'm comfortable taking him in the 2nd, but he is somebody that's very intriguing, and he's a 3-down back, which there are very few of those in today's day and age with the committees. So the fact that he's with a team that likes to commit to one back, and he's a very good 3-down running back, as he showed in college, that part does intrigue me some, where I do think that you won't be unhappy drafting him, even with that line. I do think, they did, not to go too much on a tangent, but David DeCastro left and everybody was freaking out, but he actually was rated as one of the worst guards on PFF. They brought in Trey Turner, who should be an upgrade there. I do think that the volume and the fact that the line, I don't think will be worse. I think it will probably just be maybe a little bit below average, but he'll make it look better. I do think that he's not a bad asset to add, just not in the second round.
Yeah, no. I mean, he'll be okay. But I mean, if I'm smashing anybody in Dynasty, I'll wait to get Javonte, and I'll just take Javonte in like the 5th or 6th where he's going, because that could be a running back 1 too. I mean, I know Melvin's going to be there, but Melvin's not going to be there next year. So I'll take him as a running back 2 at 3-ish, probably running back 3 in your Dynasty leagues. You can get a stud like Swift, a running back 1, and then you can get like CD or McLaurin or any of those type of guys in that 3, 4, 5 range, or maybe a tight end if it's premium. And I'll go from there. But we do want to shift gears a little bit, and we are going to be talking about running backs that we're staying away from. So I don't know if he has any, but let's talk about it. David, are there any running backs like in redraft or any other areas that you're just going to stay away from, either based on ADP, talent, situation, anything like that?
Yeah. Miles Sanders, I'm probably not getting any Miles Sanders shares this year. There's so many bodies in that backfield. There's the Boston Scotts. Jordan Howard is there, for those that don't realize. He's if he makes the team, I'm sure he's going to vulture touchdowns. They just drafted Kenneth Gainwell, who was my 3rd rated running back coming in to the league this year. And I don't love that landing spot for him, but he's going to probably take some balls through the air because he was regarded as probably the best passing catching back in the draft. And there's just so many guys there that if he doesn't perform the way we expect, that I think that they'll start working more guys in. And he hasn't shown, whether it's been health or just ability, that he hasn't been somebody that's been worth where he's going. I have him right now. I have him ranked down as RB21. And I know I'm not getting him at any point there. Somebody who I've actually recently started fading a little bit more, and I know this might be shocking, is Mike Davis. And everybody's like, look, he's going to be the sole guy in Atlanta. He's going to be, somebody you can get if you go 0 RB, which most people don't seem to go. But if you do, you can get him. But he really tailed off at the end of last season, like in a really bad way. And that was his first time actually being the starter, getting the full workload. And do I doubt that maybe the first month of the season, he's going to be somebody that's going to help you? He probably will. But I do think he's going to break down, and I think he's going to be really inefficient for 2/3 of the season. And I think that's somebody that, again, I'm not looking to take at that point, knowing that, hey, you're only going to help me out for 3 or 4 weeks. And then after that, you're pretty much just going to be somebody I'm plugging into my lineup, and I'm just looking at that spot every day, wishing I had an upgrade over you. So I've been recently just been out on him. I just don't like the outlook for him. And even in redraft, that what he'll give you this season, I think he's going to be somebody that you're going to regret having after the first month.
Man, you just reminded me of my ex-girlfriend right there, David. She looked at me like, man, I need an upgrade over that thing. Like, what is going on over here?
You upgraded now. See,
I did. Our 10-year anniversary is coming.
She's your Quandre Allison.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell my wife that. Yeah, I'm gonna tell my wife that.
Because Quandre Allison, I think, could be better than Mike Davis.
Well, I'm gonna go after Javian Hawkins, but that's because I'm an ageist. All right, now dynasty perspectives for me. I'll keep it quick. For me, Kamara is just someone I'm staying away from dynasty purposes. I do think that if you want to win now, he's a good guy to go after, because I think that based on his ADP where he's going, it's not bad to grab him. But I'm so worried about Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill and that whole situation where that's just a declining asset ready to happen. So if I'm winning now and going for it, yeah, Kamara is a smash play. But in dynasty purposes, it's just it just screams declining asset. And would we stop please drafting Leonard Fournette? Stop it. Rojo is the guy. I'm a Rojo. I'm going to say it. Rojo is going after him in some dynasty leagues. That is insane to me. Leonard Fournette is he's a plug and play. He'll have some games where he does that, but Rojo is a superior talent. Rojo is the better running back. He's been the better running back since USC. He can play, and I'm going after Rojo in a lot of my leagues, like a running back 3-ish, running back 4. You can grab him at that price. You might as well. Stop drafting Leonard Fournette. I wouldn't even draft Leonard Fournette in redraft. Would you?
No. I mean, unless he slips 5 rounds after his ADP. No, he won't be on my team.
Yeah, I don't understand the Leonard Fournette love. It boggles my mind sometimes when I see who gets drafted around him. And like I said, Rojo's been going after Leonard Fournette, and I think that's just a mistake, especially Dynasty. Like Fournette is just a plug-in guy now. Like Rojo could give you some serious return on your investment, and that's kind of what I was looking at for that. And that's kind of where I'm going there. Now, what we are going to do, like we always do, we're going to do some redraft dynasty segment questions to kind of wrap everything up. And we appreciate David spending some time with us tonight. Hopefully he's doing well out there. Let him know if he's not. Now, we are going to dynasty segment questions here. And then we're going to have Jacob go redraft. Or not Jacob. Dan, I said Jacob. Look at that.
Wow.
So used to it. David. Now, and we'll have David help with the dynasty questions too, because he does play dynasty.
I can read them to you too, Kevin. I can snatch you up for you to go and hit off the tee.
All right. Hold on. Let's get this. All right, go ahead. Give me your dynasty questions that we got from some listeners.
All right, Kevin. Question 1 in our mailbag for dynasty: who do you like better in dynasty between Trey Lance or Justin Fields?
Yeah, this was a tough one for me to decide because I like them both, but I can't go against my guy Trey Lance. He was my QB2 coming out of college. I do think I like his situation. I trust the Niners situation a little bit more. The one thing I will say is, like, a lot of people are scared right now because they said, I think there were some beat reporters that the 49ers trying to get 500 carries this year. So I know people are worried about that rushing volume, especially the 49ers, but I like you guys to know that when Trey Lance starts, which should be week 1, you know who's going to also be reusing those carries? It's going to be Trey Lance. And we're looking at Konami Code quarterbacks and stuff. That fits Lance to a T. They're going to use him and utilize him so many ways. Jimmy G is going to be holding that clipboard just watching brilliance out there on that field. So I'm going to go have Trey Lance for that, but it's very close. I like Justin Fields as well, but I don't trust Nagy and the Bears at all. And if Allen Robinson leaves after this year, I mean, who are they? I mean, I love Mooney, but Mooney's not a wide receiver 1. We might be looking at a Bears rebuild again if they don't do very well. Do you trust them to build around Justin Fields? I tend not to, but what about you?
Yeah, I think obviously you also look at the weapons that Trey Lance already has. Even if Allen Robinson stays, you have Brandon Ayuk, you have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. For those that don't remember, he looked like the next big thing before Brandon Ayuk. They have great stable of running backs and a great system, great coaching staff with the 49ers. I think it's kind of like the Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson thing, where like both could be great, but Patrick Mahomes has been able to have all the stuff around him to succeed. Deshaun Watson kind of had to do everything he can, and Deshaun Watson's still a great quarterback, but he's not Patrick Mahomes, right? And I think that could be something similar where we're like, hey, Justin Fields is making the best out of a bad situation, and he's still a great quarterback. But Trey Lance has all this talent around him that's kind of making him to the next level. And so I could definitely see that. My question to you then, Kev, and I know this is not necessarily a dynasty question, but it's with those two guys. Are you looking to take either in your Scott Fishbowl? Because they both in mine, they went to like one, I think Justin Fields went at the end of the 4th round and Trey Lance at the beginning of the 5th round. So I wasn't even able to get them with my 5th round pick back to me, either of them. So are you targeting either of those guys with one of your early picks?
No, but I might, depending on how the draft would have went. But since I have Burrow and Herbert right now, they're still on the board though for me in the 5th, so both are still there. And I'm actually on the clock right now. I'm just not picking because my league's driving me nuts. So I'm going to let them wait for a little bit. So I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I would be, but I don't mind them in the 5th, right? I think someone just took about the 412 in Fields. I think it's Scott Fishbowl. I think Fields would be the better option probably. I just think maybe he'll play a little bit more. Maybe they'll give him the reins a little bit more because, like you said, the weapons in 49ers and San Francisco is better, but the running back situation, they like to lean on those running backs where I think when the Bears give it to Fields is going to be the guy. And we could see Fields, 3 touchdowns, rushing. We're going to see that volume and just basically the usage more for Fields this year. But I think Trey Lance overall in Dynasty, he's the guy I want.
Yeah, I was very upset that I didn't get either of them in Scott Fishbowl. Neither of them slipped. My draft has been absolutely nuts with taking guys from me left and right. Let's go to the second question we have for you. Dynasty sleeper, Hunter Long. Is he have long-term value or should he be nicknamed Hunter Short because you don't believe in him?
Oh, God. All right, yes. This is why we have Mindy on the show, guys. I love Hunter Long. I've been getting him everywhere in my dynasty leagues. 6'5", 253 kid from Boston College. He was probably Boston College's last year with him and Flowers being there. Were probably the two best assets on that team. For me, he's a massive target, uses his body well. He's a lead after the catch. And I think that he has that strong catch radius. And I think Miami's going to use him there. Like I do think he's going to get a little play. So for me, if it's tight end premium, if you're waiting, if you're looking for guys late, I like Hunter Long. I think he's a true tight end. And I think Mike Gesicki's there, but he's more of a kind of slot. They use him in the slot variation. They're going to use him more of the H-back type view. I think Hunter Long is the tight end that you want to own there, and that's kind of one of my hot takes. So I would go after Hunter Long right now.
Boston College player, I feel like produces really good players. So I know Luke Kuechly. Wasn't Luke Kuechly from Boston College?
I don't really do defense, but I'm.
We found a hole. We found a flaw in Kevin's fantasy analysis. No IDPs. No.
I don't do IDP, I think he did go. Yeah, he went to Boston College, but yeah, no IDP for me, and I don't watch Boston College. I will this year because it's Zay Flowers, but that's about it.
And I think the rotational defensive player for the Titans, the Harold Landry, I think he also went to Boston College. Those are the two I just remember top of my head. So they've had some good pros there. I think he could definitely. I don't disagree.
That's great. I'm glad. I'm glad you had that. All right, we're going to go to redraft now, and these have been the last three questions, and then we'll get out of here. Who would you rather draft in a redraft league, Ryan Tannehill or Jalen Hurts?
Whoever asked this question is a very good question. Right now, they are next to each other in my rankings. I have Jalen Hurts 7. I have Ryan Tannehill 8. I could go either way, honestly. Obviously, rushing stats are huge in fantasy, and he's going to give you Hurts is going to give you that. The only part about Tannehill I'm a little concerned about with his rushing is he had 7 rushing touchdowns last year. I don't know if he can replicate anywhere near that. If he goes down to like 2 or 3, that could be a problem as far as his QB finish. He does have Julio Jones in the picture now. If you're asking me, it's going to depend on, and I know this is the cop-out answer. It's going to depend on your roster construction. If you have a safe team that you can afford to take a higher upside risk, I would take Jalen Hurts. If you have a team that you have a lot of high upside guys, but they also have low floors, then I would take Tannehill to say, because Tannehill should be a top 10 quarterback if he's healthy. Hurts has the ability to be a top 5 quarterback if he does what he did at the end of last year for a full season. So that's the way I would approach it. Look at your roster and if you can take the risk or not.
Yeah, no, that is a cop-out answer, but that's the right answer. I mean, they're going as QB10, QB11. ADP is literally right next to each other, so you have the option to pick one of these guys depending on where they're at. I like it. I think I'm gonna go Tannehill. He's a little safer play for me. But especially like if your leagues are just standard, I don't mind the Hurts one. But if your leagues do something for like completion percentage or incompletions and stuff, Tannehill will probably be the safer option there. But no, I agree. I think Tannehill would probably be the better pick just because of the safe floor. But it does depend. If like he said, if you picked a bunch of dudes that are just going for ceiling, you might want to take Tannehill to save you a little bit. Now, how much? So I didn't know these existed because I'm not in redraft mine, but apparently they do because I asked. But how much does your draft strategy change when drafting for a super flex redraft compared to a one quarterback? Have you ever played in a super flex redraft?
I haven't. So my answer will be looking at it for the first time, but yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, a super flex redraft isn't going to be too much different than a super flex dynasty as far as QBs are concerned, unless obviously you want to get young quarterbacks either way. If you're in some type of dynasty league, but any type of redraft that's super, for those that don't know, obviously super flex, you're going to want 2 quarterbacks, 1 quarterback. It's 1 quarterback. So my draft strategy, as far if they're both redraft, isn't going to change too much, depending on which one you're playing. Superflex, take your quarterback early. And then you're going to probably in a few other rounds later take your second quarterback. If you're in 1 quarterback leagues, you wait to take QB at least to like the 5th or 6th round. If once you get past like the 1-2 elite guys, they all are kind of tightly packed together. And you can use those spots to upgrade your running back, wide receivers, that type of thing. So it doesn't really change too much for me from what the standard super flex leagues and the 1 quarterback leagues do normally.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is like if you're doing a super flex redraft, I would probably, like you said, get a quarterback really early, try to get one of the top guys, and then I would probably wait because it's redraft, so I don't need to rely on the guy next year. So I wouldn't mind maybe taking a shot on like Fitz right later. Like, okay, I'll take a shot on Fitz. I'll add to this team if I maybe need to get some guys off the waiver because it's kind of redraft. I think that's less of a concern for you. Like, I don't necessarily think you need to take 2 quarterbacks in the top 5 or top 5 rounds. Like, I would kind of go away from that. But again, I don't play in redraft. So, or I mean, I don't play in Superflex redraft for sure, except for the Scott Fishbowl, but it's a completely kind of different format. Now, last question here before we get out of here: is Lance Thomas a sleeper for you?
Can't say he's really Lance Thomas, who I know where he's from. Lance Thomas, the great Lance Thomas, a great name. He's also, there's a professional basketball player named Lance Thomas. He's somebody that I'm definitely looking at this year as far as I have no idea where he plays. I'll be honest. Definitely probably not for me. What about you, Kev?
I love it. That's supposed to say Logan Thomas. I was trying to trick you a little bit there. Is Logan Thomas a sleeper for you? I wanted to see if you'd pick it up. You did not. You failed. Logan Thomas, what do you got?
Logan Thomas is not on any of my teams this year. Logan Thomas was directly benefiting from a bad offense, also from lack of weapons. Curtis Samuel is there now. Ryan Fitzpatrick's also there. Fitzpatrick does not like throwing to his tight ends. He's a wide receiver quarterback. And the passing game increased probably from Antonio Gibson. McKissick's still there. Samuel, one of the reasons I'm huge on Terry McLaurin is I think he's going to get the same target volume and he's going to be heavily featured. Curtis Samuel's eating into Logan Thomas's targets, not Terry McLaurin's. So yeah, no Logan Thomas on any of my teams this year.
I love all listeners out there. Don't you love how many was looking up Lance Thomas trying to figure out who he was, and he just could not do it. I love it. That's why we're here. That was supposed to be for Jacob, but I appreciate you stepping in and taking that hit right there. But hey, David, I appreciate you coming in and being a pickup guy for us. Next week we should have Jacob back. Once we figure out everything went well and he has his baby boy, we'll let all our listeners know. Until then, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Tell us how we're doing, and we will catch you next week. Thanks for coming on, David.
Thanks for having me. Jamal Crawford, ready to step in anytime.